Good evening, Crime Talk aficionados. Thank you for joining us here on Crime Talk. This is our Tuesday night live edition. Absolutely appreciate everybody taking the time from their busy schedules to join us to talk about what's going on in the true crime world. Now, it's been kind of a slow week as it relates to cases out there, but it doesn't mean that we always don't have something that we can talk about. Now, for those of you who have never joined us before, my name is Scott Reisch. I'm a practicing criminal defense attorney here in Denver, Colorado. And over the last 26 years now, we have handled just about every type of criminal case you could possibly imagine. So when I am speaking to you about a case, I'm giving you my 25 years of experience as a criminal defense attorney. I was a prosecutor for a very brief time in the Marine Corps when I was a judge advocate in there. But I can tell you how a prosecutor is going to prosecute a case, how the defense is going to defend the case. Do I know everything? No. Am I going to give you the best advice about what's going on in a case based upon the information we have? Yes. And like all things in life, if that information changes, our advice and opinions may change as well. That's just the way it is. But we started this program a couple of years ago now. It looks like it's just a little over 2 years ago. And that was because the Chris Watts case came on. And it just frustrated me with how bad the news coverage was about the case. Nobody really knew what was taking place or understood what was going on. And so we gave it a shot to start our channel. And here we are. A little over 2 years later, we have 167,000 subscribers, which we appreciate and thank you all very much for subscribing. And so if you haven't done that already, we'd ask that you please hit that subscribe button and also hit that little bell so that you can receive notifications of when we do go live or put up new content. Now, one thing that was actually, I thought was pretty darn cool was I received an email, and it was from a company called FeedSpot. And what they said was, hey, we have evaluated all these true crime podcasts. And guess what? We're saying Crime Talk is within the top 20 criminal law podcasts that you must follow in 2021. We made their list. So obviously we were very happy about that. And we would ask you all to, go check out FeedSpot. We're not getting any sort of promotion out of them, but I just thought it was very cool. And there are a lot of other good podcasts on there. Not that we want you to leave, but we also know that there's lots of other interesting things going on in the world as well. So go to FeedSpot and check them out. And, obviously we're honored that somebody would think that we're worthy of being listed as the top 20 true crime podcasts that you should follow in 2021. We certainly like that. And thank you all for doing that. If you haven't done so, please do so. Now, our live program is your show. That is your opportunity to ask us questions. I'll try to answer them the best I can. And please, keep them civil, I guess. But that's okay. If you disagree with me, we'll try to take your question or comment first. We'll definitely do that. And also not required if you were to do a super chat. It certainly highlights it because at times it gets very busy and the comments come flashing by rather quickly. So appreciate that. Scott, Allie, Scott, do you write a script? No, I occasionally have some bullet points, but I do put those up in front of me so I don't forget those bullet points. When you're reading from a script, sometimes it just looks like, and I don't like it. Sometimes they're bigger bullet points, but for the most part, we talk about what we know. Aisha, Hey, Scott, what do you think about the two little boys missing since December 21st of 2020? Orson and Noel, forgive if I have their names incorrect, as his little brother in California. Yeah, I remember talking about that case a couple of weeks ago. I think we did a story about it. Then we talked about it on our Tuesday night Crime Talk Live. I mean, that's a weird case. The kids, all the other kids just happen to be gone. They've adopted all these kids. But who knows? We've talked about this before. It's unfortunate, and I guess it makes for good, TV, so to speak, good YouTube stuff, where there's a lot of speculation. But the reality of it is, the police don't know, and we don't know. Certainly, if they had somebody of interest that they were looking at, they being the police, would be looking at them. No arrests have been made whatsoever. Yes, the parents have been caught in some lies, certainly not good for them. But what have we talked about so many times on this case, or so many times on this channel, which is you have to have probable cause. It's a very low standard of proof. Would a reasonable person believe that a crime was committed and that you may have had something to do with it? Well, here in this particular case, those two young boys have not been found. So they can't rule out that they were in fact kidnapped. They don't have, the remains if that's the case, and hopefully they're okay. Maybe they did get picked up. Maybe somebody was concerned about them. We don't know. And we don't like to speculate on things that we don't have facts on. But the reality is nobody has been charged yet. No indication that any charges will be coming down. And until and if they have the remains, we've talked about the Suzanne Morphew case. No remains, no charges. A lot of speculation, nothing yet. Jennifer Dulos' case, one of the rare cases where you actually have a prosecution go forward where there's no body. Obviously, we had the case of Kelsey Barrett down in Colorado Springs last year, where obviously they didn't have a body, but they had an eyewitness who said the reason there's no body because we burned the body. So that was a little different case. And obviously a jury believed that and found Patrick Frazee guilty of, first-degree murder and a sundry of other crimes. And he's going to be spending the rest of his life in prison. So, that's an interesting case, but until and if there's actual charges, we just don't know yet. Okay, now this question from Lynn goes back to the Lori Vallow, Chad Daybell matter. And the judge issued his written order today regarding the motions hearing last week. I don't know, Frank, can we put that up on the screen there? There we go. Pretty straightforward order. Basically says that the motion to disqualify the prosecuting attorney and that those hearings were held on January 6th and 8th. Upon review of the file, witnesses, arguments made, and for good cause appearing, therefore, it is hereby ordered that both the defendant's motion to disqualify the prosecuting attorney are hereby denied. It is further ordered that Pryor is calling Summer Shiflett as a witness to testify. It's further ordered that prior to calling Summer Shiflett as a witness to testify at trial, counsel be required to have a pretrial hearing on this matter. And that's obviously consistent with the oral order that Judge Boyce gave last week when he was giving his order from the bench, and basically says, hey, if anyone's going to call Summer Shiflett, we're going to have a hearing outside the presence of the jury, and we're going to decide the scope of the questions that can be asked of Miss Shiflett regarding these allegations that were found not to be supported by the evidence that was presented by Mr. Pryor and Mr. Means on behalf of their clients, Mr. Daybell and Lori Vallow, respectively. So then we jump back to the question. Miss, where it was, the young, or not, I'm not sure how the one, let me get back to her name here. Let's see here. It was the immunity question, and it was in regards to where was that? Man, all of a sudden they jumped really fast. It was a question. It was basically about Alex's Cox wife, who had known Alex Cox for about a year, and they'd been married about a week before he died. I've seen the police report as it relates to that. Frankly, it's not anything particularly shocking to me. She's cooperating with the police. They find Mr. Cox. Police go get a search warrant to go get the body. Very routine when there's a dead body, just to make sure there's no foul play and that the police were there on the property legally. Then, why can't I remember her name? This is Lupita or something like. What was it? Anyway, Alex Cox. Zulima, that was her name. She apparently is talking to the police. Then she has a family friend or family member tell the police that she doesn't want to talk with anybody until she has an attorney, and the police honor that. So there's all this stuff floating around that she got immunity of some sort. Who knows? I haven't seen anything. Nothing's been come out by either side. And, frankly, immunity, it depends on what they give immunity for. For all we know, she has something in her history that she's concerned about. They're like, we'll give you immunity if you talk about it. We're not going to prosecute you for that. If it has to do with some sort of foul play, then that'll be interesting. But if it was something of super substance, I believe that Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell would have been charged with conspiracy to commit murder of both JJ and Ty Lee, and they haven't been. So, like I said, there's so much speculation that goes on out there. I get it. It's interesting, but you can spend, talk about a red herring, just going down a rabbit hole that it's just not there. Unless she has some sort of statements or admissions made by Lori or Chad, which would be devastating to their case. Anything that Alex Cox told her is not coming in because he's dead. That would be hearsay, right? We've talked about that. Hearsay on the stand, and although there are lots of exceptions we don't need to go into, but the general rule is when you're on the witness stand, you do not get to testify what somebody told you outside the courtroom. It just doesn't happen. It's hearsay, and that's not permitted because the person that made the statements has to be there to be subject to cross-examination to get the true nature and context of that conversation. If it's a defendant, anything the defendant says will come in as admission as a party opponent. But like I said, if she had some earth-shattering admissions by either one of those two defendants, they'd be charged already. I just don't think that they have it. That's just my professional opinion on that. Take it for what it's worth. Let's see here. I got a super chat. Is Chris Watts going to be moved elsewhere, and why? This is a question, super chat by Catherine. I don't know. I don't think so. I think the only reason he would be moved is if his security classification changed at some point. That would be all that I could see. Sherry, looks like she did a super chat just to do a super chat. Appreciate that as well. Let's see here. Let me go back to some of these questions. Scott. Gianna. Not sure where they're going to be sent to a different prison. Have no idea. Haven't heard anything. He's already basically on loan. He's a courtesy prisoner for the state of Colorado, specifically their Department of Corrections. They moved him there for his own safety. Usually when that takes place, they don't move them back anytime soon. You don't get your choice of it. Normally when you're in prison for the state, you stay in the state in which the crime was committed. Little different in the federal system because they have prisons all over the country, and depending on your classification, that is where they send you. But states and the Department of Corrections have various agreements like, hey, if you take this prisoner, we'll take one of your problem children and bring them down here, or for safety purposes. So it, so that's, where that goes. I haven't heard of anything. Okay, let's see here. Deb, oh boy, here we go. Can Trump be charged in the Capitol incident? Well, anybody can be charged with anything. It's kind of like suing anybody. But I was looking at this because, one day I'm accused of being some right-wing nut job. And then the other days I'm accused of being some left-wing communist who doesn't respect anything. But more than likely, there could not be charges as it relates to incitement because of a case going back to the late 60s, and it's called Brandenburg versus Ohio. And in that particular case, the ACLU actually protected or represented a Klansman. And this Klansman, Clarence Blandenberg, he was a Klan leader, and he had been prosecuted under state law for making a speech in which he advocated violence against African Americans and Jewish people. He was convicted. The American Civil Liberties Union represented Mr. Brandenburg. The case went all the way up to the high court. And under that standard, you have to be able to show that the person making the statements intended to provoke violence. But I went back and looked at the words that were used at that rally, and they were probably vague enough that it's possible to argue that he was simply urging his supporters to peacefully walk up the road, go to the Capitol, and peacefully protest. Certainly lots of people can argue that the different ways, but from a criminal defense perspective, I think the Brandenburg case would probably protect the president there from any charges as it relates to that. Now, however, there's obviously a growing movement, even among people in his own party, that he's going to be impeached. And I'm not sure he's going to be able to stop that train for sure. So, Deb, hope that answers your question. But the immediate threat of violence standard, you really have to go back to the Brandenburg case. And it's a 1969 United States Supreme Court case. And it discusses imminent lawless action. And so the standard's pretty tough. You basically have to say, you go do this harm to this particular person, not you should go up there and be tough and fight for me and blah, blah, blah. I don't know. Mobs can be crazy things. And like I've said before, I will be the first one to support anyone's right for to protest and to do that peacefully under the First Amendment. But as I've said many, many times throughout the summer, as soon as you start breaking property, including the government's property, guess what? You've no longer become a protester. You are a criminal. You're committing vandalism. You're committing crimes. When you're harming people, you're committing assaults. And as we've seen, or what we've heard about, you're committing murder. And bottom line is that will not be allowed. It needs to be punished under anyone who believes in the rule of law. And like I said, we've talked about this before. A lot of people think there's two systems of criminal justice, those for the rich and powerful and those for everybody else, which usually includes, the working class and the poor. And, can't necessarily disagree. Certainly seems like there's lots of people that have been charged with situations that could be charged that never were. And then it looks like it's all political because the people in charge up there at the Department of Justice don't enforce the law equally. I'm not sure why somebody in a position of power gets a free pass. Like I said, when I was a prosecutor, we always, we would meet with the general, or the general, would decide who would be prosecuted, particularly. And it was always understood that as the officers were held to a higher standard. And if you're in charge, you're held to a higher standard. You should be. That's just the way it is. So we'll just leave it at that, because no matter what, you say about that, you're upsetting 50% of the people. And I found that I can upset 100% of the people because everybody thinks that I'm talking about a particular side. And I was telling Julie today that when I used to teach years ago, people would always ask, well, what do you believe? It doesn't matter what I believe. I'm just here to teach the material and be able to present both sides to it. And you should be able to decide for yourself or come to your own conclusions. And you should never know what side in that case, the professor was on in any particular way. Okay, Pamela, I like the horse with the human legs behind you. So let me grab this real quick. So this is a little sculpture statue by an artist that lives here in the state of Colorado. And he's done some really famous stuff. But I received this as a gift. And I think it's just the coolest thing ever. Because kind of like it's obviously the Trojan horse. You got the horse and the little legs going behind you. And the story where they sneak into Troy and they wheel it in and then they attack everybody. And I really like it because I think it kind of represents how you need to defend a case. You need to look like you're going to be doing it like everybody else, i.e. the horse, but underneath you're not letting them see what's going on. And so I just like it. It was a gift from the lovely Miss Kristen. And I absolutely love that statue. And it's the old classic thing. If they think you're going this way, then you go the other way. You never let them know exactly what you're doing. You have to think like the enemy, so to speak, so that you can prepare a good defense. And sometimes when you got nothing, you have to get really, really creative. Okay, it says they said Zulema got use immunity. I'm not sure who they are. However, I'm not sure who, like I said, they are. People can say anything they want. It's simply whatever they say won't be used against them at trial. What they say at trial won't be used against them in any future prosecutions in any way. But as I recall, this Zulema was there when the whole interview went down with Mr. Stewart down there in Arizona, and I think he was her attorney. So clearly that's not, like I said, I hate to speculate. I mean, there's so much speculation out there. And I like it. Like I said, it's interesting, but until I've seen it, I don't even really want to get into it. But use immunity is basically whatever you say to the prosecutor, they're not going to use against you in subsequent prosecutions. That's all it is. Let's see here. Yeah, it was on the Rob Woods Summer Shiflett recording. Exactly. That's where I heard it, where she was there as well. What's going on with Scott Peterson case? Is it up to the Roca family to decide to try the death penalty again or the prosecution? Clearly, under most states, there's what they refer to as a Victims' Rights Act, which says that the prosecutors must consult with the family members of a victim of any sort of crime of violence. Obviously, the victim survives, they get to be consulted. But if it's a case where a death is involved, the family has to be consulted. Ultimately, the family has some say in it. I've seen cases where the family was completely against the death penalty. The prosecutors said, oh, that's very nice. We appreciate that, but we're still going forward. Other DAs have said, we're going to not want to pursue it because the family doesn't want to pursue it. But at the end of the day, you have to look at the caption on any of the pleadings. And it is, for example, in the Scott Peterson case, the people of the state of Colorado or people of the state of California versus Scott Peterson. It is the state prosecuting them, not the family. The family is maybe a witness. They certainly have, a chance to sit in the courtroom under the Victims' Rights Act during the trial, to be there, to be consulted with, have everything explained to them by the prosecutor. But at the end of the day, it's ultimately the prosecutor that makes that call. Pamela, you're welcome for responding. No problems. We try to do it. Catherine, something in language, maybe German? Probably money is always the reason. I'm not sure what that means. No money for the bond. Should be interesting. What do you think about Meghan Markle and Prince Harry suing everyone? Not really criminal law related, but sure. Even though in most of the instances they've called the paparazzi to pap themselves. Mary, I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't know that they were suing everybody. I've got my own opinion about Meghan Markle. I think Prince Harry should have stayed and been a prince. I cannot believe that he left for her. That's just my opinion for what it's worth. I don't know. I think he's going to go home years from now, completely unhappy, probably divorced, and a lot less rich. That's just the way I think it is. He was born into that position. Yeah, he can abdicate that, but for her, I don't know. There's just something that rubs me the wrong way about her. I don't know. I just can't tell you. Camille, I'm very sorry for that. I'm so sorry for your loss. Sorry about that. Sorry. I figured Chad being so successful and having so many followers, he would have come up with bond money. Well, like a lot of people, when they get arrested, they find out who their friends are and who their friends are not. A lot of people just want to go about their lives. They certainly don't want to be involved in it, particularly in a case like this. But the people that do stand behind them, you find out who your friends are. That's just the way it is. And you would think that they would try to bond him out. But hey, the good thing when your client's in custody, at least you know where they are. They're going to call you probably every day, because when they do bond out of custody, you'll never be able to find them again. At least they're a little more difficult to find. It's probably because they're working and all, and they just, to pay your bills. But, that's just the way it's just ironic. We have clients that call us every day. They're in custody. And then once they get out, we simply cannot find them. Let's see. When you're married, you're supposed to choose your spouse. I get that, Jaybird. Once you're married, you're supposed to choose your spouse. I get it. Let's see. Whitey Bulger was killed within 24 hours of his transfer to Hazleton in West Virginia. What responsibility did the prison have to place him in protective custody? Obviously, the prison has some responsibility to place somebody in protective custody. Obviously, bad things can happen in prison, and they're not going to be able to watch you every second of every day. But if you have a high-profile inmate, you have to be able to watch them and take care of them. Now, like I said, things can happen, but in that particular case, the Whitey Bulger, his family is actually suing the Bureau of Prisons, saying that he was not adequately protected. I haven't seen any news about any sort of settlement, so the litigation goes on. And then, assuming you can even get around the governmental immunity statutes that exist for the federal government and all their agencies, I may hate to say this, but what's the value? Sure, Whitey Bulger's family loved him, but his earning capacity is gone. And I know this is talking like a lawyer. I mean, obviously every life is worth something, but in the world of the law, some people are worth more in the eyes of the law than others. Obviously, if you're young and you're completely harmed and paralyzed and completely disabled, and you're going to need care the rest of your life, that's going to take a lot more money than if you're 80 years old and your life expectancy is another year or two. You're not losing out a whole lot of future earnings. Some people may say, oh my God, Scott, that's absolutely crass and sick, but that's the law. That's the way they calculate it. I remember my torts professor way back in law school saying, if you're going to hit somebody, make sure they're poor, homeless, they have no assets, no good job. You hit a doctor and you injure them, the value of that goes up exponentially. So some people probably say, oh my God, you're completely, but that's the way the law calculates it. It's just the way it is. Some people don't like to hear just the way it is, but that's the law. How is it Lori never made it to appear in court, and how does that help her or not? I'm not sure. I think I missed the first few minutes of that hearing before it started, but obviously a criminal defendant has a right to be present at all stages of the proceedings, but they can waive their right if they choose not to be there. Their attorneys may advise them, hey, it doesn't really matter. If you're there, it's just going to be a distraction. Your picture is going to be plastered everywhere. Every grimace you make is going to be judged. Why don't you just not be there? I don't know. I mean, it's sort of like a collateral issue in this particular case. And obviously it didn't turn out to be much of anything as it related to the allegations that were brought by the attorneys against Mr. Wood, and none of them panned out whatsoever. So that's the case. Normally the court requires that, but requires that a defendant be present because they're entitled to be at every phase of the proceedings. And most judges require that, particularly if they're on bond, particularly if they're in custody, because if you do something, and it's a critical stage of the proceeding, a decision needs to be made and the defendant's not there, you have to stop the proceedings anyway. So you have to have them present. Even if the classic example is you have a jury question, your client's in custody, they got to go down, get the inmate dressed, bring them up, your defendant. The attorneys may be right there. They could answer the question. The jury's waiting, could answer the question literally in 5 minutes. But you got to wait for the sheriff to bring everybody up, clear the courtroom, blah, 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 do all the security stuff because it's a critical stage of the proceedings. Going over jury instructions, the jury goes home, usually do it after, 5 p.m., assuming you can have a court reporter. You do an informal jury charging instruction conference where you go over and say, all right, we're just about close. These are what the court's going to give for instructions. You go over it. The court will ask the defendant, it's going to be informal. We'll put everything on the record. Do you still want to be here? Usually the defendant will say yes, particularly in a serious case. And it kind of slows the proceedings down. But that's what you have to do. That's called due process. Yes, it'd be a lot easier to, just whisk along and do it. But we have to make sure that people that are charged with a crime, just like the public needs to know what is going on as well. Okay, I'm a black sheep question. Scott, what do you think about the attorneys representing the man who posed with Nancy Pelosi's lectern? They said that he was a family man, 5 kids, and his spouse is a physician. He's not violent. Thoughts? Well, I'm assuming they're doing their job. They're going to do everything they can to zealously represent their client. I had heard that. I think I'd read that he was that. So that's going to bond type conditions. I don't know what happens, but everyone's entitled to a criminal defense. And, it's every one of those people charged, unless they can afford a private attorney, they're going to be given either A, the public defender, or they're going to be given what they refer to in the federal system, a Criminal Justice Act panel attorney, which are private attorneys that will be paid for at government expense to represent these people. Every single one of them will have an attorney. And I would venture to guess that 99.9% of the attorneys that are going to represent every one of those people charged at the Capitol probably does not condone, endorse, like in the slightest way what took place. But their oath and obligation as an attorney is to defend the Constitution. And as an officer of the court, you have to defend people that come before you that need representation. That's what our system requires, and it demands it. And I am sure there will be no shortage of attorneys that are willing to step up and represent those individuals, whether they're court appointed, whether they are hired. They will represent those individuals when they're charged. The court is going to make sure they have an attorney because they're looking at going to prison, right? And depending on how they charge it, obviously, if it's a murder of a federal police officer, that's a capital offense. If it's vandalism of government property, you're probably looking at a 10-year mandatory minimum. All those people that love mandatory minimums, they're great until it's somebody or it's your case. But yeah, I don't know anything about the attorneys that are representing that gentleman. I wish them well. They have a job to do, and they will do it, and I'm sure they will do it professionally, just like any attorney would. And if anyone was charged with a crime, you should demand an attorney. You should expect to have an attorney. If you can't afford one and you qualify, they will appoint one for you. So I say my hat's off to those attorneys. They're going to have a, very unpopular client in the eyes of the public. But that does not necessarily, no way changes their right to counsel under the Sixth Amendment to the Constitution. So no matter how repugnant, how offensive the crime is to you, how repugnant the defendant is to you, they're entitled to an attorney. They're entitled to due process of law. Let's see. What about the guy with the horns? He's not eating in jail because they don't serve organic food. I saw that article as well. And this gets really, really weird when it comes to jailhouse food. Most people may not know this, but there's actually a body of law regarding food for inmates. You have vegetarians. There's lots of people that want kosher food. They get it. The court, they have to make reasonable accommodations for these inmates because they're inmates, and everybody, they still have rights even though they're in custody. But there's a whole body of law. I'm not going to say I'm an expert on it, but I know I've seen stuff go by regarding it. There's lots of pro se litigation where people are in custody regarding that. So, did I miss a super chat? It says you missed a super chat. Carrie, let's see here. Can I go back to the top and look for a super chat? Didn't see it. Did you all see it? There it is. Oh, here it is. The Geek. The Geek LP. Scott, what do you mean about social media censorship by moderation, given platforms are not legally public domains and not protected under Section 230? By moderation, giving platforms are not legally public domains. Well, if you're talking about Section 230, that basically says that the platforms will have protection from basically civil suits to take down certain things that appear on the internet that are, what's the word I'm looking for? Offensive, threatening, and the companies will have protection, even if it turns out to be they took down what would otherwise be protected rights. So let's see here. Now, we talked about this the other day, whereby under censorship, my definition is that the censorship is wrong. It's great if it's what you believe is bad and not decent, so to speak. Then you can, I don't get the exact definition here. People are okay with that. But it really sucks is if what you're trying to say is being censored in one particular way. And so what section 230, section C1 provides immunity from liability for providers and users of the interactive computer service who publish information provided by third parties. And basically what they agree under section 230 is that it allows them to remove or moderation of third-party material they deem obscene or offensive, even of constitutionally protected speech, as long as it is done in good faith. Okay, that's going to be a term that's going to be tossed around in good faith. Obviously, there's lots of litigation that started between Amazon and Parler. Parler is supposedly this alternative to Twitter, and Amazon shut them down because they said that there were people doing things on their platform that they didn't like. Parler sued them. One of the arguments that they're really making is this was political in nature and not done in good faith. So they're suing them for antitrust violations, breach of contract, as well as other things. And I think where it comes into good faith is a lot of people say, well, you don't take this stuff down, but yet you allow this to go up. Where is it? And, obviously people put up so much stuff on the internet these days that, how could one possibly find it all as quickly as possible? But they're going to have protection if they take it down and supposedly in good faith. Well, we thought about it. We looked at it. We didn't think it was great. Even if they're completely, absolutely wrong, they're not going to be able to do it. What's so funny over there, guys? Did I miss something here? Okay. I lost my screen all of a sudden. Let me see what I did with it. Hold on. I think it's here. Sorry. There we go. All right. So that's where it is. And so, like I said, I'm a firm believer that as soon as you start censoring people, obviously the First Amendment provides the government cannot censor individuals, cannot take away your freedom of speech. And there was a YouTube site, they filed suit, but it got dismissed, which was basically Prager University. And they were putting up YouTube content. YouTube would take it down. They would say that it wasn't appropriate. I mean, I think one of the videos they got, they were demonetizing them. They were doing whatever, and they filed suit. And they said, you don't have protection under Section 230 because you're not really private. You're taking the place of the town square where you can get up and say anything you want, but yet you're allowing some people their argument was that it was political in nature to allow their stuff to go up, but you take down all our stuff because you don't agree with it. It's not woke or it's not politically correct. And the case got thrown out because the court said no suit here whatsoever. I think it's on its way to the United States Supreme Court. But like I said, it's not like it was the government years ago when there would be book burnings. We don't like this particular book. We're going to go burn it. We don't like it. It's too upsetting, sensitive material. Let's get all the books together and burn it. Now people can do what they want, but I mean, really? Is that really what we want to do? I mean, uh, you know, it's called being intellectually honest. Not everything you read is going to make you happy. It may upset you. It may offend you. I see things that I don't like every day, but I'd rather have those people saying it, even no matter how ridiculous it may be. You know, have you heard there's people out there that still believe the earth is flat? All right. I think that's absolutely ridiculous, but I'm not going to censor them. I may laugh at them. I may say, that's ridiculous. I wouldn't give them the time of day. But if that's what they believe, so be it. I think most people are going to say, based upon what we know and what we can see from outer space, I think you're probably wrong about that. But get it out there, flush it out. You know, lots of things in science that they thought were absolute truths turned out to be different. And it wasn't until somebody said, no, I think you're wrong. And somebody finally said, hey, let's take a look at that. Let's talk about that, that they realized that the changes were made. So, like I said, I'm certainly not going around telling anybody that nobody should go around inciting violence. No way in hell am I saying that. I thought what took place at the Capitol was an absolute embarrassment for everyone involved. It looked bad for the country. It looked bad for the president. It looked bad for his party. And I think it was the moment where a lot of people just said, I'm done. I've had enough. So, Angela Merkel, she's not the president. She's the prime minister. Am I using the right word for Germany there? Angela Merkel said Twitter was wrong for blocking the president. I mean, I don't know. I just think it's wrong. I think it's the equivalent of a modern day book burning these days. And like I said, it's great until it's you being blocked. Bottom line, and there's completely randomness. Is it made in good faith? I can tell you yesterday, our little video was monetized. If you all saw our video this afternoon, it was pretty mellow. I thought it was about as vanilla as they come. But guess what? YouTube demonetized it. Said, nope, not good enough for us. Well, was it because we talked about the Chauvin matter? Was it because we talked about the death penalty case and the Lisa Montgomery matter? Doesn't matter. YouTube just says, if those words come up, we're going to take it down. Bottom line. Is that good faith, or is, obviously they take it down, then they'll look at it and they'll probably, hopefully say it's appropriate, but there was nothing of a sensitive nature there at all that should warrant that in any way. And you try to read their things. If you talk about modern events that could be deemed sensitive by somebody, YouTube says they have the right to take that down. So in theory, remember early on, not in theory, I guess, YouTube banned any videos that mentioned the word COVID because they didn't want people making money off of a national or a worldwide health pandemic. If you talk about modern events, I don't know about you, but I think there's only so many, cat videos or little dog videos that you can watch on YouTube before you'd like to have some real stimulation. An intellectual conversation. Apparently, maybe that's not what YouTube wants some days, but that's just the way it is. Lori, I think I answered that question. When is Ghislaine Maxwell going to be in court again? I think our motions come up in March, trials in July. Let's see here. Do you have any plans to highlight cold cases in the future? Yes, we do. We were doing that for a while. Kind of got away from it just because things got busy, but yes, we would like to do that. Let's go back here. Let's see here. Okay. Yeah, Yosemite Jane. We talked about the 6 prisoners the other day that escaped from a California facility. And apparently there are laws or policies that don't allow for the prison personnel to wake up prisoners throughout the night. And therefore, that's basically how they more than likely got away. Hey, I don't know what to tell you. Welcome to California. I think one could obviously argue that that would be a reasonable security situation that needs to be done. We've heard that that was completely reasonable in the Ghislaine Maxwell case, where they wake her up on an hourly basis to make sure that she is okay. But hey, we've said this once, and I'm sure I'll say it many, many times again. I don't know what the hell they do in California. Everything they do seems to take longer than it should, and they usually get it wrong. So we'll see. Let's see here. Scott, thanks for all the info. Love watching you. Thank you, JC Kent. I want a mug, but I'm not a dumb criminal of the day. Well, nice transition there, JC. You can simply go to the link below and order your mug. See, I have this beautiful Crime Talk mug here. Just hit your link. So therefore, when you're watching Crime Talk or past episodes, you can partake of your favorite beverage from the mug. But great transition, because guess what has shown up? That's right. A couple of items from Teespring, samples. Frank, first of all, can you put up that little picture of my new little puppy with her Crime Talk merchandise? That's right. Look at that. Is that not adorable? That's right. The lovely Miss Kristen and I, in a moment of weakness, decided to get a bulldog, because I've had previous bulldogs and I love bulldogs. Sometimes they're not the smartest dogs in the world. They're really expensive because they have health issues. But look at Miss Winnie. Is she not adorable? She is 10 weeks old, and look at her next to the Crime Talk pillow. So I brought it in tonight. Take a look at that. Is that not great? Seriously. Go to it to below. You can get that. Now take a look at this. Brought in this other one. They sent me all these samples. See how they turned out. So you got that one. Not bad, right? You can get it any color you want. You just go there. There's another little Crime Talk with a little thing on the back. How's that, right? And this is one I think I kind of personally my favorite. Aficionado. And then just another option. You got the Crime Talk there. And they're soft. These are soft materials. If anybody knows me, anything I love, nice soft materials. Very soft. The pillow and the Miss Winnie will love her pillow. I assure you of that. So if you want merchandise, simply go to the link below. You order it, you pick the color you want, they'll send it out to you. You'll have it in about a week or so. Where else can that take place other than right here in America, where you can do just one order? You don't have to buy 50 of them or 100 in a lot, and you just get shipped straight to your house. I love it. Question, Jill. Did Chad, referring to Chad Daybell, hand over his house to Pryor for his attorney bill? Have no idea, but probably not his house. It's funny. I had somebody today that owes me money, and they wanted to give me a house in a different state, which I don't want. If the house is worth anything, I don't want a house. I just want to be paid. But there are ethical issues. I can tell you, you can't take a house as collateral. You can't take property as collateral. It gets into a weird area. So more than likely, if that was the case, he would have had to have, first of all, owned it or sold it and then just written the money. I assure you, most attorneys don't want personal property. They want to get paid. Let's see. Do you think Mr. Word's going to file murder charges? At this point, I just don't see it happening unless there's something, I've mentioned this before, unless there's something on those phone records. But once again, even then, You have evidentiary issues. Just because you have it on a text message, on a phone, you have to be able to establish who said it. Just because it's on a phone, it doesn't mean that the person that they're trying to say, they have to authenticate those documents and be able to show that the person they're trying to say wrote that statement did in fact do it. And there was already stuff that came out at, I believe it was the preliminary hearing, where it said these people were sharing phones, letting people borrow phones. It was in other people's names and they were using it. So, at this point, I'm a little skeptical of homicide charges, but if he's going to do it, he probably needs to do it sooner rather than later, so that we're not, a week or month before trial, and then all of a sudden, oh, we got a murder trial. It's going to take another year to get to trial, because you don't get to piecemeal it. You don't get to try this case and then say, oh, now we're going to charge you with murder. There's a concept in criminal law. It's called compulsory joinder, which is basically, if you know there are all these cases out there, you have to bring them all at once. The prosecutor can't piecemeal cases and say, oh, look, I'm going to get this guy here, and then I'm going to file this case, and then he's going to have another conviction, and then they're going to file this case. You can't hold on them. If you know you've got them, you got to file them. And if I was their attorney, if they went through this trial and the proceedings, my position would be compulsory joinder, and that jeopardy would have attached, and therefore they would be barred from criminal prosecution. But that's just my theory on that. All right, we did that. I went back to the geek, answered that question. Hopefully, let's see here. Any type of security, need to find her. Oh yeah, let's see here. Any questions? U.S. What is the Criminal Justice Act panel? Is that what Letitia Stout has? No, Letitia Stout has the public defender, but in the federal system, they have a federal public defender. And then when the public defender cannot take a co-defendant's case, if they're a co-defendant, or if they're, particularly in a large drug conspiracy case, is what you see oftentimes in the federal court. Obviously, the public defender can't represent the same defendants in the same similar manner. So there is basically an application process. You have to be a very qualified attorney to get on the Criminal Justice Act panel. You're approved. And then when they need attorneys, they go down, ask the list, and say, would you like to take this case? You can take it or not. And you do. I'm on the Criminal Justice Act panel. And, it varies. Maybe you take 1 or 2 cases a year on that. Sometimes it's more. It just depends on the case. So it's basically a private attorney appointed by the court to represent somebody. Okay, some of those people didn't realize anything you do in D.C. is a federal offense. One of them wanted to know where City Hall was. Tough for them. It's federal property. All they have to be charged with is knowing that they were destroying property, not that it was federal property. Let's see. What about he's not eating? Okay, yeah, we talked about that. Okay, I think I got all that. Why is the media allowed? Let's see here. Let's talk to Photo Spencer, their Facebook. Do the sizes run large or small? Right on 100% cotton. What is your, let's see here. I think they run a little small, but that's just me. Probably because I've gained the, COVID-20. But yes, they are, what's the word I'm looking for? They are, yes, 100% cotton. So yes, the merch is right in the store there. Yes. All right. I was actually surprised with me in his last motion disqualified. He seems like he's actually studying. He's been an attorney for many years. It's just not his area. I thought he could have been a little more succinct when giving his statements, but that's just the way it is. Wow. Can you believe that has been an hour already for our Crime Talk live on Tuesday night? Wow, that went by fast. Just answering questions that people had. So, wow, that was really fast. I want to thank everybody for watching. Thanks, everybody, for taking the time out of their days to watch Crime Talk. We appreciate it. It couldn't take place without you. If you haven't done so already, please like, please share. Please go to Facebook. Please go to Instagram. Like it. Follow the page. We'd appreciate that as well, so that, I guess it always helps in that social media stuff to boost your numbers, so to speak. So we'd appreciate if you do that. I think all the links are below for that as well. And as always, if you need to find out about somebody you're not sure about, go to crimetalksearch.com. You cannot go wrong by doing a background search on somebody. Hey, sometimes nothing comes up, and guess what? At least you have the peace of mind to know that there's nothing there. And sometimes if you find something, you may not like it, but at least you can deal with it, right? What do we talk about here? You got to have the information. Let's talk about the facts and go from there. So go to crimetalksearch.com. You'll be happy you did. All right. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. That will end our broadcast this evening. If you haven't become a Patreon member, hit the link below. Go sign up. We'll send you a link here in the next 10 minutes or so, and we can do our Patreon live on Tuesday night. And guess what? You can actually call in and we can have a conversation versus me just reading questions from the screen. But if that's what you all want, that's what we'll do. But it's your show. You're paying for it. We'll talk about whatever you want. Have a wonderful evening. See you tomorrow on Crime Talk, and our Patreon members will see you there shortly.